Hidden in the heart of Alberta stands a fortress of fear, the Edmonton Institution, a place where the walls echo with violence and despair. Designed to contain Canada's most dangerous criminals, this maximum security prison has earned a chilling reputation for gang warfare, brutal assaults, and constant lockdowns. It's not just a prison, it's a battlefield where survival depends on loyalty, power, and silence. Welcome to Edmonton Institution, where danger never sleeps. Standing in the northern outskirts of Edmonton, Alberta, the Edmonton Institution is not just another correctional facility, it is a maximum security fortress built to confine those deemed too dangerous for ordinary prisons. Every inch of this place tells a story of control, fear, and survival. The massive perimeter fences rise like steel giants, topped with layers of razor wire that glisten in the cold Canadian sun. Motion detectors, surveillance cameras, and guard towers surround the compound, creating an environment where escape is not only impossible, it's unthinkable. From the outside, it looks like a block of gray concrete sitting silently under Alberta's harsh weather. But inside, the air feels heavy, a mixture of tension, routine, and the ever-present awareness that violence could erupt at any moment. The architecture itself is designed to break the human spirit. Narrow hallways, thick reinforced doors, and cells built more for containment than comfort. Each section of the prison is sealed behind electronically controlled gates, where the sound of locking mechanisms echoes like a constant reminder of captivity. The Edmonton Institution houses some of the most violent offenders in Western Canada. Men serving life sentences for murder, organized crime, and acts of extreme brutality. To handle such individuals, the prison was built around one central idea: absolute control through isolation. Inmates here spend the majority of their lives locked away, sometimes for as long as 23 hours a day. The only break from solitude comes in the form of short, monitored yard time in small, fenced-in enclosures barely large enough to pace. Inside their cells, prisoners live with minimal human contact. The environment is intentionally sterile: concrete walls, a metal toilet, a narrow bed bolted to the floor, and a single window that barely lets in the light. The silence is unsettling. Every sound, the distant clang of a door, the footsteps of a guard, or the hum of a security camera, feels amplified. Over time, isolation becomes a mental battle as much as a physical one. The psychological design of the Edmonton Institution is rooted in containment. Every space, every routine, every rule serves one purpose: to minimize risk. Meals are served through steel slots in the cell doors. Communication is limited to short exchanges with correctional officers. Even recreational activities are scheduled with military precision, ensuring rival inmates never cross paths. For many, life here is a monotonous cycle of confinement and surveillance, repeated endlessly until time itself loses meaning. For the guards, the fortress is equally daunting. Their movements are dictated by strict security procedures. They operate in pairs or small teams, always alert, always aware that a single mistake could cost them their safety. The control rooms, filled with monitors displaying every corner of the facility, act as the brain of the institution. Guards can remotely open and lock doors, track inmate movement, and respond instantly to any sign of disturbance. Yet despite these advanced systems, the feeling of vulnerability never disappears. The Edmonton Institution is divided into several units, each serving a specific purpose. There's the segregation unit, the most restrictive of all, where inmates are placed under solitary confinement, often for extended periods as punishment or for their own protection. There are also general population units, though general is a misleading term here. Even in these sections, interaction is heavily controlled. Prisoners are categorized and placed according to their gang affiliations, behavioral risks, and psychological evaluations. Every decision is made with security in mind, as the wrong placement could trigger violent consequences. The design of the facility also reflects the harsh realities of life inside. The hallways are narrow and cold, illuminated by flickering fluorescent lights. The smell of disinfectant and metal fills the air. Every door and lock is built to withstand force, and every corner seems to have a camera or a mirror for visibility. It's a world without privacy, one where you're constantly seen but rarely heard. For inmates, time inside Edmonton Institution is not just about serving a sentence, it's about enduring the system itself. Many describe the experience as living in a cage within a cage. There's no sense of community, no trust, and no chance for escape, physical or emotional. The days blur together, marked only by routine. Wake up, count, meal, lock up, count again. To survive, prisoners adapt, creating unspoken rules of coexistence. Some isolate further, while others find ways to communicate through walls, air vents, or the brief moments when their eyes meet in the yard. The isolation serves a dual purpose. For the system, it's about maintaining order and preventing chaos. For the inmates, it becomes a slow erosion of the mind, a test of endurance that few can pass without scars. Psychologists who've studied long-term solitary confinement often describe the effects as severe: hallucinations, anxiety, paranoia, and a complete loss of identity. At Edmonton Institution, these effects are magnified by the environment itself: cold, mechanical, and unrelenting. Even the weather plays a role in the prison's atmosphere. Alberta's winters are brutal, and the frigid winds that sweep across the compound seem to freeze time. During snowstorms, visibility drops to near zero, and the entire facility feels even more detached from the world beyond its walls. For the men inside, those storms symbolize their reality: isolated, cut off, and powerless against forces they can't control. The Edmonton Institution, in many ways, represents the extreme edge of Canada's correctional philosophy, a place where safety overrides rehabilitation and containment replaces compassion. It is a necessary evil in the eyes of the justice system, a final line of defense against those deemed too dangerous to roam free. Yet for those who live and work inside, it's a constant reminder of how thin the line between control and chaos can be. The fortress doesn't just hold men, it holds stories of violence, fear, endurance, and loss. Behind every steel door lies a life defined by walls. And in the silence of those halls, one truth echoes endlessly. Inside the Edmonton Institution, freedom is not measured in years, but in moments of survival. Inside the cold, unyielding walls of the Edmonton Institution, violence is not a random occurrence. It's a language. It's how power is communicated, respect is earned, and survival is ensured. This maximum security prison in Alberta has built a reputation that few dare to question. It is one of the most violent correctional facilities in Western Canada. Every inmate who enters knows one rule above all others: you either dominate or be dominated. From the moment a prisoner is processed, he steps into an environment shaped by tension. The air hums with distrust. The guards know it, the inmates feel it, and everyone understands that a single glance, a wrong word, or even standing in the wrong spot can ignite chaos. Violence here is not just about anger. It's about control, reputation, and survival. In the world of Edmonton Institution, brutality is often the only form of justice that matters. The roots of this culture lie deep in the structure of the prison population itself. Within these walls, every inmate belongs somewhere, to a group, a gang, or a silent alliance. Divisions form along lines of race, territory, and criminal networks that stretch far beyond the prison gates. Groups like the Hells Angels, Indian Posse, and other organized gangs hold invisible power inside. Their influence reaches from cell to cell, from the yard to the dining hall. To survive without protection is nearly impossible. Isolation makes you a target, and neutrality is often mistaken for weakness. Each wing of the Edmonton Institution carries its own reputation. Some units are known for constant lockdowns following violent outbreaks, while others maintain a fragile calm through unwritten truces. Yet even in so-called quiet units, tension simmers like a dormant volcano. Guards often describe the silence before a fight as unnaturally still, the calm before an inevitable explosion. Weapons are officially forbidden, but that doesn't mean they're absent. Inmates find ways to create improvised blades, sharpened from pieces of metal, plastic, or even the broken ends of toothbrushes. These homemade weapons are known as shanks, and their presence is both a warning and a promise. Fights often erupt without warning: a flash of movement, a scream, a guard's radio calling for backup. Within seconds, chaos fills the hallways. Blood on concrete becomes a grim reminder that peace here is always temporary. Guards respond with riot shields, batons, and pepper spray, moving in formation to separate the combatants. But even after the fight ends, the violence never really stops. It simply changes form. Retaliation is an unspoken rule. One attack breeds another, creating cycles of revenge that can last for months or even years. Many assaults are carried out not in rage but with chilling calculation. Messages meant for entire gangs, not just individual victims. The prison yard, where inmates are allowed brief moments of fresh air, is often a battleground of tension. Groups gather in circles, each occupying their own space. One for indigenous gangs, another for bikers, another for independent inmates trying to survive between factions. Conversations are quiet, coded, and cautious. Eyes are always scanning, watching who talks to whom. Trust is the rarest commodity in Edmonton Institution, and betrayal is repaid in blood. Even guards aren't immune to this culture of violence. They walk the corridors knowing that at any moment, they could become targets, caught in an ambush or attacked with a hidden weapon. Over the years, numerous reports have surfaced of staff being assaulted, sometimes with serious injuries. These attacks often happen suddenly, during routine cell checks or inmate transfers. For correctional officers, every shift is a test of endurance, and every interaction is a potential threat. The psychological toll of this environment is immense, both for inmates and staff. Living in constant fear shapes behavior in unpredictable ways. Some inmates become hyperalert, paranoid, unable to sleep. Others adapt by embracing the violence, becoming predators themselves. Inside Edmonton Institution, aggression is a defense mechanism, and emotional vulnerability is a death sentence. Even small gestures of kindness, sharing food, speaking calmly, offering advice, are viewed with suspicion. Everyone assumes there's a motive. Behind the scenes, gang hierarchies dictate much of the daily life. Leaders give orders through coded messages, sometimes passed via corrupt communication channels or written notes smuggled between cells. Acts of defiance or betrayal are punished swiftly. Those who cooperate with authorities, known as rats, are isolated for their safety, but the stigma follows them everywhere. Their lives become even smaller, confined to protective custody and endless solitude. The Canadian Correctional Service has made repeated attempts to curb this culture of violence through stricter security measures, gang separation policies, and rehabilitation programs. Yet the problem remains deeply ingrained. Overcrowding, lack of mental health support, and long-term isolation only feed the cycle of hostility. When men with violent pasts are locked together with little hope of release or progress, aggression becomes inevitable, a grim reflection of the environment itself. Each outbreak of violence leaves scars, physical, psychological, and institutional. Bloodstains are scrubbed away, cells are repaired, reports are filed. But the echoes remain. The inmates talk about it for weeks, guards stay on edge, and administrators increase restrictions. Lockdowns become longer, privileges are revoked, and the already suffocating tension tightens further. The cycle begins again, stronger and more dangerous than before. In such a world, fear becomes a form of order. It maintains a fragile balance. Everyone knows what happens when it breaks. To survive, inmates learn to read the smallest cues. A sudden silence in the corridor, the shift in a guard's tone, or a look exchanged across the yard. Those signals often mean more than any official announcement. Inside the Edmonton Institution, understanding violence isn't optional, it's essential. For the outside world, this prison is a symbol of safety, a place that keeps society's most dangerous individuals away from the public. But for those inside, it's a volatile ecosystem where violence defines existence. It's a place where loyalty can save your life but also take it. Where every handshake could hide a blade, and every day survived is a silent victory. Here, violence isn't just what happens, it's what holds everything together. It's the rhythm of life behind bars, the unspoken law that governs the Edmonton Institution, and the constant reminder that in this fortress of fear, peace is only an illusion. Behind the massive concrete walls of the Edmonton Institution, there's a silent army that walks into danger every single day, the correctional officers. To the outside world, they are simply prison guards. But inside these walls, they are the thin line between order and chaos, between structure and total anarchy. The Edmonton Institution is one of Canada's most violent maximum security prisons, and for those who work here, the job isn't just about enforcing rules, it's about survival. Every morning begins the same way: security checks, gear inspection, briefing on inmate movements. But the moment an officer steps through the gates, routine becomes a gamble. Inside there are no guarantees. Every inmate interaction is a potential threat. Every corner could hide a weapon. The officers know this, yet they show up, day after day, walking the same cold hallways lined with steel doors and danger. The fear never really leaves, it just becomes part of the job. The staff of Edmonton Institution live in a constant state of alertness. The atmosphere inside is charged like a pressure cooker that could explode at any moment. Officers develop an instinct, a sixth sense, to detect tension before it erupts. They can read body language, tone, even silence. Because here, silence often means something is about to happen. A sudden quiet in the yard, an unusual request, or a glance exchanged between inmates can signal violence brewing. The mental and emotional strain is immense. Officers are expected to maintain authority in a place where authority is constantly challenged. They patrol among killers, gang leaders, and men who have nothing left to lose. For some inmates, attacking a guard is a way to gain status within their gang. It's a demonstration of dominance, a message to both fellow inmates and the administration that they control the narrative inside. Every assault, every confrontation adds another layer of fear and tension. Reports of staff assaults at Edmonton Institution are disturbingly common. Officers have been ambushed during routine cell checks, struck by hidden weapons, or attacked without warning in hallways and common areas. Even small tasks, delivering food trays or escorting an inmate to the showers, can turn violent in seconds. A simple refusal to obey an order can escalate into chaos. Backup alarms are a constant soundtrack, echoing through the halls, followed by the heavy boots of response teams rushing to contain yet another outbreak. When a violent incident occurs, time slows down. Training takes over. Officers rely on muscle memory, communication through radios, use of shields, restraint techniques, and tactical formations. But even with the best training, they are human. The sound of metal slamming against metal, the sight of blood, the screams of inmates, these images stay burned in memory long after the shift ends. Many guards describe being haunted by the echoes of those moments, replaying them in their minds long after they've gone home. The psychological toll of working in such an environment is severe. Many officers develop symptoms of anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. Some turn to alcohol or medication just to sleep. Others simply shut down emotionally, a defense mechanism to survive the relentless tension. The institution has mental health programs for staff, but the culture of toughness often prevents officers from seeking help. In a place where weakness can get you hurt, vulnerability feels like betrayal. Beyond the danger, there's also the emotional cost of dehumanization. Officers must maintain authority without compassion, detachment without cruelty. Every day they face individuals who manipulate, threaten, or beg. Some inmates play mind games, pretending to cooperate while plotting ambushes, or forming emotional connections only to exploit them later. Over time, this constant battle of control erodes trust, not just in the inmates but in colleagues and sometimes even in themselves. The relationships among staff are both a strength and a necessity. Camaraderie becomes survival. Officers form unbreakable bonds, forged through shared fear and mutual reliance. They trust each other with their lives. When the alarm sounds, they run toward danger together. No hesitation, no questions. It's this loyalty that keeps them going even when morale sinks and burnout feels inevitable. But despite their unity, many feel abandoned by the system they serve. Over the years, correctional officers at Edmonton Institution have voiced frustration about understaffing, long hours, and lack of support. They face dangerous conditions, yet often feel that management prioritizes paperwork and policy over their safety. Lockdowns stretch into weeks, tempers rise, and the smallest mistake can lead to tragedy. The weight of responsibility is enormous. Keeping violent inmates under control, protecting themselves, and ensuring the safety of everyone inside, even those who wish them harm. Some officers describe working there as walking into a storm that never ends. They must balance empathy and enforcement, strength and restraint. There are moments of quiet, brief respites when routines go smoothly, but even then the unease never fades. They know peace is temporary. They know that somewhere, someone is planning the next move. Despite all this, many correctional officers remain committed to their duty. They see their role as essential to justice, a necessary defense between society and those who refuse to follow its laws. For them, it's not just a job, it's a calling. They take pride in maintaining control where chaos reigns. They are unseen protectors, often misunderstood, often criticized, but always standing firm in a place most people could never endure. Still, the emotional scars accumulate. The line between their professional and personal lives blurs. Some bring their anger home, others bring their silence. Families notice the change, the distant stares, the nightmares, the exhaustion that never fully fades. These are the invisible injuries of working behind bars, wounds no report can document, and no uniform can hide. The Edmonton Institution is a fortress, but for its staff, it's also a battlefield. Every day is a test of will, against fear, fatigue, and despair. They walk through those gates knowing they might not walk out the same. The walls don't just confine inmates, they also trap the people tasked with keeping them in line. And in that shared confinement, both sides fight different wars. One for control, the other for sanity. In the end, the staff at Edmonton Institution are not just guards. They are the silent warriors of a hidden world, men and women who face darkness daily, not because they have to, but because someone must. They carry the weight of a system built on punishment and survival, holding the line between order and collapse, one shift at a time. Within the cold concrete confines of the Edmonton Institution, among hundreds of men serving long and brutal sentences, exists a darker hierarchy, one defined not by prison rules but by notoriety. These are the high-profile inmates, the names whispered in fear both inside and outside the walls. They are the murderers, the gang leaders, the contract killers, and the men whose crimes have made headlines across Canada. For many of them, this maximum security prison in Alberta is not just a sentence, it's the final destination. Every high-profile inmate that arrives at the Edmonton Institution is treated as a potential threat, not just to others, but to the fragile balance of control that the prison struggles to maintain. From the moment they step off the transport bus, their presence sends ripples through the system. Guards become more alert. Inmates start whispering. These men carry reputations that precede them, reputations earned through blood, power, and violence. They have led gangs, ordered hits, and committed acts that shocked even hardened criminals. Some of the most notorious offenders in Western Canada have called this place home. The list includes individuals tied to organized crime syndicates, high-level drug cartels, and violent biker gangs like the Hells Angels. Others are infamous murderers, men who committed crimes so brutal they became symbols of evil in the public eye. Here, behind the razor wire and reinforced walls, these figures are stripped of their power, at least officially. But inside, status never disappears. It simply changes form. In Edmonton Institution, high-profile inmates are both feared and respected. They command influence over lesser-known prisoners, sometimes even over entire cell blocks. Their words carry weight, their alliances shape the daily rhythm of prison life. Even while locked away, many of them continue to control operations on the outside, passing orders through coded letters, phone calls, or visitors. The system tries to stop it, but influence is a shadow that cannot be contained by concrete. Because of the danger they pose, most high-profile inmates are placed under strict isolation. Many spend their days in solitary cells, small windowed boxes of reinforced steel and silence. Contact with others is minimal. Meals are delivered through a slot in the door. Exercise happens in fenced, single-person cages under watchful eyes. For the most violent, this isolation can last months or even years. It's not punishment, it's precaution. The guards know that one mistake, one opportunity for contact, could lead to bloodshed. Yet even isolation does not erase identity. These men carry themselves with a kind of dark pride. Some still wear the tattoos of their gang affiliations, marks of loyalty that define who they are. Others remain defiant, challenging authority through every possible means. They refuse to follow orders, destroy property, or threaten guards, all as a reminder that even behind bars, they cannot be broken completely. The tension between these inmates and the institution is constant, a battle of wills played out day after day, door after door. For the correctional staff, dealing with high-profile prisoners is a daily test of discipline and fear management. Every movement, from a shower break to a medical visit, requires multiple officers, shackles, and strict coordination. Mistakes are not tolerated. A single oversight could cost a life. Some officers admit that escorting these men feels like walking a live grenade through a hallway. They are unpredictable, calm one moment, explosive the next. Their mere presence changes the atmosphere, a reminder of the dangers that define this place. Among inmates, high-profile prisoners are treated with a mix of awe and caution. Some seek to befriend them, hoping for protection or status. Others avoid them entirely, knowing that proximity can draw unwanted attention or danger. Power attracts envy, and envy breeds violence. Rumors spread fast. Who's been moved, who's in segregation, who got into a fight. In the Edmonton Institution, even whispers can start wars. Many of these inmates live in permanent lockdown conditions. They are denied interaction with others because of the threat they pose or the danger they face from rival factions. For some, isolation becomes a psychological prison within a physical one. The days stretch endlessly, the silence grows heavier, and their own thoughts become enemies. Some high-profile inmates lose touch with reality, others harden even more. Rehabilitation, for most, is no longer part of the conversation. The system focuses only on control. The media's fascination with these men adds another layer to their myth. Their names make front-page news whenever something happens. A fight, a transfer, a security breach. Outside the walls, they are remembered as monsters. Inside, they are legends. But the truth is far more complex. Many of them live in conditions that break the human mind. The same men who once commanded fear now spend years alone in silence, staring at walls that never change, haunted by memories that won't fade. Despite this, Their presence continues to shape the identity of Edmonton Institution. Guards talk about them in briefings. New inmates whisper about them in the yard. Their reputations serve as both warning and inspiration to others, proof of how far power can reach and how far it can fall. The institution itself almost seems built to contain their stories, its thick walls holding secrets that will never be told beyond its gates. Some of these inmates will never leave. Their sentences stretch beyond their lifetimes, life without parole or terms so long they might as well be eternal. They have become part of the prison's DNA, names etched into the institution's dark history. For them, Edmonton Institution is not a stop along the way, it is the end of the road. The world outside has forgotten them, but inside, their legacies remain alive, woven into the fear and power that define every hallway and cell. The Edmonton Institution's reputation as one of the toughest prisons in Canada owes much to the men it houses. Their crimes, their influence, and their defiance have shaped the culture of the facility itself. Each high-profile inmate is a story of violence and consequence, of power gained and lost. Together, they form the backbone of the prison's legend, one built not just on walls and wire, but on the dangerous lives contained within them. Life inside the Edmonton Institution is a harsh and unforgiving experience that pushes even the strongest men to their psychological limits. From the moment an inmate arrives, they are stripped of their identity, placed in isolation, and immersed in an environment where fear and control dominate every second. The sound of clanging doors, the distant shouts of other prisoners, and the constant tension between inmates and staff create a sense of unending pressure, a reminder that survival here is earned, not given. Inside this maximum security facility, every move is watched. Cameras line the corridors, guards patrol in groups, and yet violence often happens in the shadows, swift, brutal, and without warning. Gang hierarchies dictate who eats with whom, who walks in the yard, and even who can speak to whom. Loyalty to a group can mean protection, but betrayal can mean death. Inmates learn quickly that neutrality is not an option. You either belong to someone or you become a target. Most prisoners spend up to 23 hours a day locked in their cells, small, concrete boxes with little more than a bed, toilet, and sink. Isolation becomes their companion. For some, this confinement breaks them mentally. For others, it fuels a deeper anger. The psychological strain of solitary confinement has long been debated by human rights organizations, yet in Edmonton Institution, it remains a common disciplinary measure. Inmates who cause trouble or are deemed security risks are placed in segregation for weeks, sometimes months, without human contact beyond a guard's muffled voice through the steel door. Meals are served through narrow slots, and the food, often bland and cold, is another reminder of the life they once had outside. There's no privacy, no comfort, and no sense of time. The lights dim but never truly go out, creating a disorienting cycle where day and night blend together. This constant surveillance and isolation create a psychological battlefield where every inmate must decide whether to surrender to the system or fight to maintain a shred of humanity. The yard, where inmates are occasionally allowed, offers a brief escape from the suffocating walls. But even here, danger lurks. Guards stand watch from towers, rifles ready, while rival groups keep a close eye on each other. A wrong look, a whispered insult, or a past debt can spark sudden violence. Fights erupt fast. Sometimes with homemade weapons, other times barehanded, but always with deadly intent. The aftermath is often silence, broken only by alarms and the hurried footsteps of guards rushing in. Inside the Edmonton Institution, mental health is a growing concern. Many prisoners suffer from depression, paranoia, and post-traumatic stress. The lack of rehabilitation programs and the high levels of isolation only worsen these conditions. Few inmates leave better than they came in. Many become harder, angrier, and more dangerous. Some find brief solace in reading, exercising, or writing letters, but hope is rare in a place designed to break the spirit. For the staff, the danger is constant too. Guards must remain alert, knowing that any moment could turn violent. They face verbal threats daily and physical assaults more often than most prisons in Canada. The relationship between staff and inmates is one of mutual distrust, a delicate balance that can shatter in an instant. In short, life inside the Edmonton Institution is not just imprisonment, it's endurance. Every day is a test of willpower, where survival depends on mental toughness, caution, and the ability to navigate a violent underworld that operates behind locked doors. Working inside the Edmonton Institution is not just a job, it's a daily confrontation with danger, unpredictability, and fear. The correctional officers who walk these corridors face an invisible war, one fought not with rifles on open ground, but with discipline, vigilance, and endurance behind locked doors. Every shift begins with a mental preparation, a silent reminder that anything can happen. An ambush, a riot, or a sudden attack that turns routine duty into a fight for survival. The Edmonton Institution has earned a reputation as one of Canada's most dangerous prisons not only because of its violent inmates but also because of the constant tension between staff and prisoners. Guards are often outnumbered, supervising some of the most volatile individuals in the country, gang leaders, murderers, and repeat offenders who see violence as their only language. Inmates test authority constantly, from refusing orders to orchestrating fights or smuggling contraband. The smallest lapse in attention can lead to serious injury or even death. Over the years, there have been numerous reports of assaults on correctional officers, attacks carried out using improvised weapons made from toothbrushes, metal scraps, or plastic melted into sharp points. Some incidents occur during cell checks or meal distribution, while others are ambushes designed to send a message. No one, not even the guards, is safe. These acts of defiance are not random. They're calculated moves within the prison's power structure, a way for inmates to establish dominance and control. To maintain order, the staff rely on strict routines and an unwavering chain of command. Every movement, from unlocking a cell door to escorting a prisoner, is governed by protocol. But despite the layers of security, tension simmers constantly. Guards must find a fragile balance between authority and empathy, knowing that excessive force can escalate conflict, while leniency can be seen as weakness. The emotional toll of walking this line day after day is immense. Many officers struggle with burnout and psychological stress. Witnessing violence, threats, and trauma repeatedly can desensitize even the strongest minds. Some experience anxiety, depression, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, yet few speak openly about it. In a culture built on strength and control, admitting fear or emotional exhaustion can feel like failure. But the truth is, behind every uniform is a human being trying to cope with the same fear and uncertainty that defines the inmate's world. The security infrastructure itself poses challenges. The Edmonton Institution, though fortified, has aging systems and limited resources to deal with modern threats like smuggled phones or organized communication between inmates inside and outside the walls. Contraband continues to flow in through creative methods: drones, visitors, corrupt contacts, making it harder for staff to maintain control. Every discovery of drugs, weapons, or phones sparks new investigations and lockdowns, further straining staff and heightening tensions. In recent years, correctional staff have demanded better safety measures, more personnel, updated surveillance systems, and improved mental health support. But even with these improvements, the fundamental challenge remains: managing a population that lives on the edge of violence while ensuring safety for everyone inside. Each day in the Edmonton Institution is a battle of patience, endurance, and control, where every guard knows that one wrong move could change everything in a heartbeat. The men and women who work here are not just officers. They're the silent backbone of a system constantly under siege. They walk through the gates each morning knowing that while the inmates are locked in, danger is always free to move. The Edmonton Institution stands today as a grim monument to Canada's ongoing struggle with incarceration, rehabilitation, and control. Decades of violence, corruption, and human suffering have left deep scars on the prison's reputation, forcing the public and policymakers to ask a difficult question: can this place ever truly change? Over the years, countless reviews and reports have exposed the prison's failings: overcrowding, mental health neglect, excessive use of solitary confinement, and the unchecked presence of gangs. Human rights advocates argue that the Edmonton Institution has become a breeding ground for violence rather than a place of correction. Each incident, a riot, a stabbing, a suicide, becomes a symbol of a system stretched beyond repair. Reform, many say, is not just overdue, it's essential. However, change in a maximum security prison like this is never simple. The inmates housed here are not ordinary offenders. Many are dangerous, unpredictable, and deeply damaged individuals. They have lived through violence and have become products of it. Rehabilitation programs that work in lower security facilities often fail here because trust, cooperation, and emotional openness are nearly impossible to build in a place ruled by fear. Guards are trained to maintain control, not to counsel, and inmates are conditioned to resist authority, not to change. This psychological stalemate has kept the institution trapped in a cycle of control and rebellion. Yet, despite this bleak reality, small efforts toward reform have begun to take root. In recent years, the Correctional Service of Canada has experimented with new mental health initiatives and behavior management programs aimed at reducing violence and improving inmate stability. Specialized units now exist for those struggling with mental illness, providing therapy and counseling rather than constant isolation. These programs show promise, but they face resistance from both staff and inmates, who have learned to survive under older, harsher rules. Technology too is playing a growing role. Enhanced surveillance, digital tracking systems, and improved communication between prison units have made it harder for gangs to operate unnoticed. Yet even with these tools, the real challenge remains cultural, transforming an environment built on punishment into one that balances discipline with humanity. The future of the Edmonton Institution depends not only on government funding or technology but on the willingness to see prisoners as people capable of change. Without that shift, the facility risks remaining what it has long been, a warehouse of lost souls, where rehabilitation is overshadowed by retribution. For many critics, reform means transparency, allowing external oversight, media access, and public accountability to ensure that abuses are exposed and addressed. But for those inside, especially the officers, reform must also mean safety, a system where they can do their jobs without constant fear of assault. Striking that balance will define the institution's legacy for decades to come. If the Edmonton Institution continues on its current path, it may one day collapse under the weight of its own dysfunction, a symbol of a justice system that punished but never healed. But if true reform takes hold, if violence gives way to structure and fear to discipline, it could transform from one of Canada's darkest places into a model of resilience and recovery. The walls of Edmonton Institution have heard screams, confessions, and silence that stretches into years. Whether those walls will ever echo with something different, perhaps the sound of redemption, depends entirely on what Canada chooses to do next.